We're thinking about getting a battery and extending our solar. Going to take you on that journey. We've decided who we're going to go for. We're going to do 3 steps in this video. Going through what I think I need, going through all the consultants and getting different prices. And the last one came out of that second discussion of where to put the battery. Welcome to RedX. My name's Damien. If you followed our Rudder channel, it's mostly a boating channel. This is all at home. So all the stuff we do at home, a little bit of extra. So this one is, before we've got anything done, we're going to investigate a battery. Now in Australia, at the moment, there's crazy rebates. So that's the reason we're doing this at the minute. There's 25% off your battery paid for by the federal government. So why not take it up? Let's go on the journey together. There'll be a few videos in this. I'll get through, once we've got it installed and how we're going, we can check out the stats of how everything's going. Let's step inside for steps 1 and 2 because I'm going to need some of my notes to get through all the data. But the first thing you need to think about is, why do you want a battery? We've got solar on this house. There's 2 people in the house. We've got a pool. We do have an EV, so our power usage is reasonably high. It's around 12 kilowatts to 15 kilowatts a day. We try not to charge the car during the night. We try and charge the car during the day to make use of the solar. And we've had that solar on for about 7 years. So we've got 6 kilowatts of solar on the roof, and that's going through a 5 kilowatt inverter that used to have a alright feed-in tariff that would give us some money back through our bills. That has evaporated now, and the feed-in tariffs in Australia have decreased quite a lot over time. I remember when we first got solar, we were getting 44 cents a kilowatt, and that was amazing. Now it's down to 10, and I think in the latest one they want to drop it to 4 cents. So basically nothing. Your solar on your roof is just better off being used in your house, so changing when you use the dishwasher and the washing machine and things like that. The main reason that drove me to think about getting a battery is the government rebates at the minute, which are a 25% rebate on your battery. And also, I've been thinking about it for a little while because the solar's not quite working. We had a cyclone that knocked out the house for a few days, so a battery backup would be pretty neat. So I started investigating that, and I guess the rebate really kicked me over the edge. So also with that, I'm looking at the wholesale idea. You can find out more about that in other videos, but basically instead of using just a normal electricity provider, you go into wholesale prices, which are much more variable. The idea is you store your energy up into your battery during the day, and then at night time you release that energy when the cost per kilowatt is a bit higher. We can go into that later on. Also, we have a Tesla, as I mentioned. They had a promotional thing to come out and see the new Powerwall 3. So that, I guess, kicked off step 2, which is going through the various different options we looked at. And I guess my thoughts evolved as the different companies came out to quote and give us some ideas. So the first one we went and had a look at, basically Tesla, was the Tesla Powerwall 3. And these are a fairly formidable looking piece of equipment, backed by a very large name. This is their new one. So the Powerwall 3 is 13 kilowatts with a built-in inverter. It has all the bells and whistles, like you can sell back to the grid. Obviously that's a big thing we want. You can support your house during your blackout. But the thing they had is you have one, which is the Powerwall 3 that comes with the inverter, and then you have a expansion pack, which is the same battery again, no inverter, and you can just keep building those. So they're each 13.5 kilowatts. So I looked at potentially getting a 13 kilowatt with the expansion pack. So that's 27 kilowatts, which is a lot for us. As I mentioned, we use about 12 kilowatts in a day. So that is a awful lot of energy. But if you're doing wholesale, the payback on that wasn't too bad. And also being a Tesla, it matched very well with the car. So you've got the capacity to do DC to DC charging. The thing with that is the price. If you just wanted a Powerwall, it was $12,000 from 18,000 down to 12 with the rebate. If you got the expansion pack, it was $18,000, so that's 27 down from 27,000. So that's a 13 kilowatt and a 27 kilowatt system. Probably a little bit too much for us. So then I had a look at some other companies, and one thing that I really wanted to look at, and this is probably something you should think about, is I wanted a local company with a local installer, so if there were any issues, they could come back and sort it out. So Energy Solutions is a Gold Coast based company, so I had a look at them. They were using Signon batteries, and they did two ideas for me. One was just the battery and the inverter, so that would probably work just staying with grid power and not going on to wholesale power. But it was still quite a little bit. A 16 kilowatt Signon battery and inverter was $17,000, $6,000 rebate, so that takes it to 12. Fairly much in line with Tesla, a little bit bigger battery. Then they provided an option for a bigger system, 24 kilowatt of battery with an additional 11 kilowatts of solar on top of my 6 kilowatts that I already had, so taking that to sort of almost 18 kilowatts, and that would be 19,000. That was certainly a much better idea if you're looking at that high-end range. Having the solar and the bigger battery, I thought that's really what I want. I want to expand the solar a little bit more and expand the battery. So you can keep, and also the idea with these is you can use the different feed-ins into the inverter. So my older solar, which probably isn't performing as well, can go into one feed into the inverter string, and the new solar, which would probably be performing a little bit better, can go into the second string. The next company was Greensure. So there's lots of these, and they are really hard to sort of mix and match. So Greensure, their idea was to do 13 kilowatts of solar with Jinko cells and a 13 kilowatt battery, a SunGrow battery and inverter. 13 kilowatts of battery seemed a little bit low to me, and especially when you got the price back. It was a $27,000 investment, $8,000 rebate, taking it to $16,000. But it's quite a smaller battery there. So additional 13 kilowatts of solar, so that'd be 19 kilowatts of solar on the roof and a 13 kilowatt battery. Probably, that didn't quite match what I wanted. The last company has actually had a rebrand whilst I've been doing this video. They were called RedX, now they're called Renox. And I was interested in them because they sort of do everything in the same company. They're a battery builder. They also do all the inverter work. So there's a lot of electrical engineers in the company, but they also do the technology around the wholesale energy distribution. So that's basically deciding when your battery should discharge to the grid to earn money and when it should stock up and save the battery. So it can sort of understand a lot of AI systems, which is all the rage at the minute. If you're going into a period of rain and you're not going to get as much solar, they're not going to discharge the battery. So all that kind of thing, it's all in the one company. So that was very interesting to me. Also, they're a local based company. They're just up the road in Yatala. So literally I could go visit the showroom and check out what they were doing and see everything. Renox was looking at supplying one of their 20 kilowatt batteries, which they can sort of just stack them up to make more battery. So a 20 kilowatt battery with an inverter, and that has all the power to do the things I want. So it can supply the house when there's a blackout, it can feed back to the grid, all those kinds of things. I wasn't interested in DC to DC charging. I don't think that's something we need, but these are all the things you need to look at when you're thinking of a battery. And an additional 8.5 kilowatts of solar on the roof, which takes it up to a 13 kilowatt system with the additional 6. All installed, everything ready to go. So they're also the wholesaler, so I had a relationship with them previously, so I think I got a bit of a good deal. But basically that ended up about an $18,000 system, and then with the rebates taking that down to $9,500. So that is a pretty big difference in price. So once again, we've got a 20 kilowatt battery, a total of 13 kilowatts of solar, and this is the option I went with. So they do all the prices are install. So that's one thing to ask for, and that's where we go to the next step, which is where to put your battery. The last part of this video is where to put the battery. I didn't even think this was a concern. I just thought you'd put it in the garage or it'd be super easy, but it actually became a bit of a discussion with each of the consultants that came around. So it's one of those things that definitely have the people come round to your house, especially if you're in a tight place like ours is a villa. If you've got a really big property with, there's lots of room, probably not a big issue, but for us it became a bit of a discussion point, and you need to make sure you comply with all the legislation, obviously, but also in Australia with the big rebates, if it doesn't meet legislation, they're not going to give you that rebate. So the first obvious choice was to put it in the garage, just in here, which sounds like a good idea, but putting a battery on this wall here, actually, that's where I thought it would go, became out of the question. I don't know all the legislation, but you can't have it near windows. You need some clear space, and I could have moved the surfboards if that was a possibility, but there wasn't enough clearance from the windows for the rest of that wall. So, and also, my car's too big. I couldn't put bollards in the front there and have a battery. Then I got, well, where are we going to put this thing? So another idea was our distribution box is on the front of the house. So they'll always ask you that. They want to send, you need to send through photos of your distribution box, your distribution board, which is in the laundry. So the other idea was to put it next to the Tesla, which sounded a bit obvious. This spot could have worked. It would be tight when you're reversing the car in. There'd be bollards in the way. It is a bit open to the weather. So that was one idea. So that certainly, was something we kept in mind. But there's another wall around the side, which is where the existing solar comes down. So let's travel over there. I think every house has sort of this side of the house with all your facilities and amenities. We've got the air conditioner, we've got the inverter for the existing solar, and some gas tanks. Notice, and here is the conduit that runs in to our distribution board. So the battery is going to need to get into there. That would be a lovely spot, but there's gas bottles here. Can't have them near the gas bottles. So it got a little bit tricky. There's a door into the laundry, and if I move up a bit further, we have an air conditioner. So we've got air conditioner, door, inverter, and gas. And you've got to be, get the people out here so they can do all the measurements. But actually, this piece of wall here is where we're going to stick the batteries. It will require an awning over the top, so we can have the conduit coming down from the extra solar that we're going to put in. It'll be another inverter. That inverter is going to stay, apparently, and then somehow they'll have to wire it across to the distribution board. So I guess the moral of the story is get your installer out here, get all the measurements, because where you think it might go might not work. So that's the end of it. We're hoping the rain stays away and we'll have the install this week. So we'll have a tower of batteries, apparently about 600 wide. I don't know how big that is in inches. 600 wide, going to be pretty tall, about as tall as me, I think. And they'll be sitting here. Exciting, that'll happen this week. Join me on this journey of getting this battery in and the extra solar, and I'll show you what happens on Wednesday.